Welcome back. The federal government should federalize its response to the coronavirus for federal employees, according to 7 members of Congress. Those members tell the Centers for Disease Control and the Office of Personnel Management feds should get their own allocation of vaccines. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton represents the District of Columbia. She's one of the signers of the letter to the CDC director and the acting OPM director. Madam Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining me today. You visited a pharmacy recently with Vice President Harris to promote getting vaccinated. Why would you like to see federal employees get their own allocation of shots, ma'am?
The basic reason was because there's a shortage in our own jurisdictions, and the federal government should take care of its own by having its own stock for its own employees. But what the president has come up with, we endorse. What he has said is that each federal employee should have 4 hours of administrative leave per dose. This would have been a good thing, we think, because each jurisdiction has its own allocation. So why not the federal government, its own allocation? But we're satisfied with what the president has come down with, given the shortage all over the country.
In the event that the federal government gets its allocation for employees, who do you think makes the most sense? What organization in the federal government makes the most sense to run those allocations and make sure those shots get into the arms of the federal employees in an effective, efficient way?
Well, now, and then again, we get down to the local level. I guess it would be the OPM, but they're not organized on the local level, so they'd have to deal with the local level after all. That's why I think giving administrative leave may be the best solution.
What is the best way to measure the rollout of federal employees? Would you like to see that measured separately in addition to in the way that you're suggesting the shots get out? Would you like to see someone, maybe OPM, keep track of how quickly these shots are getting into arms, ma'am?
Well, the reason I think it would make some sense if they could do it, and I recognize that they're dealing with jurisdictions all over the country because there's no jurisdiction that doesn't have federal employees. But the reason it would make sense is that it could tell us when to open the federal government. If federal employees are all vaccinated, then the sooner that happens, the sooner the federal government itself can open.
What are you hearing from your constituents who are federal employees about their willingness or eagerness or maybe a lack of desire to go back to the office in the wake of some kind of progress on the pandemic?
Well, actually, I hear more from people not in the federal government. My fellow employees, and I probably have more federal employees in my own region than anyone else, are anxious to go back to work. But teleworking, which is what I'm doing, and what federal workers are doing, has made it possible for the federal government to keep working. So I'm not hearing the same kind of complaints from federal employees that I'm hearing from others, such as those who work in restaurants and hotels, for example.
And that was the question I wanted to go to next, ma'am, is what are you hearing from those people that are saying we need people to come back to the office at some level so that the economy in the district starts to maybe come back to where it was pre-pandemic?
It's the economy that worries us now. The economy doesn't suffer when federal employees are working at home, but the economy of the District of Columbia suffers tremendously when our restaurant workers, when our workers, because this is next to the federal government, our workers that tend to our amusement places are the largest number. Those are the people who are really suffering. They can't telework. They can't work from home. That's why the progress that the new administration is making on getting vaccines to people is encouraging. What bothers me is not the administration of the vaccines, but the supply of the vaccines. It looks like those who make the vaccines can't make them fast enough for the need in our country and certainly in our region.
We learned at the beginning of the week, ma'am, that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can be distributed now. They're starting to get into the supply chain as well. What do you expect to see both for federal employees and for your constituents all over the district who want to be back at work and be ready to serve the federal employees that are coming back? What do you expect to see timeline-wise? Have you gotten any information yet about what that might look like?
No information, but I can tell you that a one-shot vaccine is going to light years hasten the not only getting back to work or getting back to the office, but getting rid of this vaccine. That's really what we've needed. I'm not sure I've ever seen a vaccine where you had to have 2 doses before.
We have about 30 seconds left, ma'am. Are you, back to the prioritization of the shots, are you satisfied with the way that the jurisdictions are categorizing people, that federal employees will get the proper prioritization that you and your colleagues would like to see?
Look, I am. In this region, for example, we're categorizing people 65 and over. Now, I don't think a federal employee who's 25 years old should get a shot before an older worker. So I think federal employees are important, but I don't think we should say they are more important than other employees, so they should jump to the front of the line in some way. They live in their own jurisdictions. They're characterized according to how their own jurisdictions believe is important for their jurisdictions. And I think that fellow employees have to go along with everybody else in that way, with other workers in that way. The important thing is what the president has done, which is to say 4 hours of administrative leave for every shot.
Congresswoman Norton, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to have you back on the program.
My pleasure.